Hey y'all, Natalie here today, and I am working in my Life Crafted that I have for our camping adventures. Here it is. I don't have a ton done in it for this year yet, even though we have taken a few trips, but I'm going to work on the first set of pages from this last fall break trip that we took. And I'm using this Autumn is Calling stamp set by Catherine Pooler. This was from last autumn. And then I've picked out a few Distress Oxide inks that match the photos. So over there on the left, you can see these photos of my kids in their hammocks. And one of them has pretty bright colors on his hammock. So I'm using that as kind of the guide for the colors of the leaves that I'm going to stamp. So I pulled out my Tim Holtz stamping platform. And I'm just arranging the stamps so that there will be plenty of space to put a die and cut around each one. And I'm just going to stamp in 4 different colors. I'm using, I think that's Blue Lagoon. And then that one is Crackling Campfire. I'm also using Fossilized Amber, which is a yellow color. And the green color is called Forest, something about a forest. Sorry, I don't have it here in front of me to be able to tell you. I'm making sure to dry off each layer before I add a second layer on top. But I do want that crisp, clear image, so I am going to add 2 layers, which the platform is fabulous for. So I've die cut all of those leaves, and now I've trimmed down this mustard yellow cardstock to the size of the Traveler's Notebook insert in a Life Crafted page protector. And then I'm cutting down this piece of vellum to just a little bit smaller than that piece of cardstock. And I don't want to be able to see any of the adhesive, so I'm going to build my page on top of the vellum before I adhere the vellum to the cardstock. Typically when I adhere vellum, I just use a staple or something that you can see, but this time I just wanted to glue it down, so I'm going to do it behind the die cuts that you see there that I'm putting on there. So I'm just kind of seeing how I want to stick those down. I'm going to do 2 groupings and then kind of a little title in the middle. And my title is going to be Fall Break. You can't really tell, but I have a piece of acetate there that I'm putting those stickers on. So I'm not just throwing them onto the vellum yet, but those are some old Amy Tangerine. They're almost kind of vellum stickers as well that I have in my stash. And then this is in a Creative Bubble for Studio Calico, and it's a National Park set. And I'm going to use the Outdoor Adventure stamp as a subtitle under my Fall Break title. So I'm going to commit to sticking down the die cuts, and I'm just using my ATG gun to adhere all of those down in the groupings that I kind of had already pre-planned. And then that's what I'm going to use to stick my vellum onto the cardstock. Yeah, and you won't be able to see any of the adhesive through that vellum. What are we doing now? I'm going to go ahead and stamp first. So I wanted to stamp with my Distress Oxide on the vellum, but I was afraid that it would smudge even after it dried. So I decided to set it with some heat embossing. So when you use Distress Oxides, they have the type of pigment in them that allows you to use them as heat embossing inks. So I was just kind of testing it out there, and you can see it's still, even after I dried it, it still looks like it might smudge. I don't know. It might not, it might dry, but I wasn't going to risk it. So what you'll see me doing here is I'm going to line up my vellum where you can see the lines on my cutting board underneath, so I can get a straight stamp there. And then I wanted clear, but I couldn't find clear, so I got this iridescent glitter heat embossing powder. And my style's rustic sparkle, so why not add a little bit of sparkle to this page, right? When you heat emboss on vellum, it is best, I find, to heat it from the underside, and then just kind of touch it at the top of the heat, but you don't want to set it too long because the vellum paper is very thin. It's much thinner than a cardstock that we're typically embossing upon. Okay, so I'm just kind of using the guides there to try and make my title a little bit straight. It is still a little wonky, but you know, that's me and I'm okay with it. And then I realized that I have another photo that doesn't really go with the colors of the photos that I'm going to put in the pocket page on the left. It's a picture of us watching a movie at night. And so I decided that the empty space there above my title is a really good place to add it. So you'll see me do that here in a second. But there I used the hidden spots under the die cuts to add adhesive and adhere the vellum to the cardstock. And now I'm going to back that photo. I cut it down a little bit more. I'm going to back it with some white cardstock just to help it pop and it kind of add some cohesion with the white border around the leaves that I've put on that page as well. We did an outdoor movie. We watched Hocus Pocus outside on the first day of camping. It was really fun. I got my Halloween cup there. We were feeling festive. Yeah, and I'm super happy with that. And I like how it ties in the photo from the pocket page to the other page. So I backed all of my photos in white cardstock and cut them down to the perfect size squares that go in the little square pockets. And now I'm going to see if that fits. And it does. And I had an idea that I wanted to do, and it didn't really work out, but you'll see here in a second. It's fine. So I was going to stamp onto this white cardstock, but then I thought, what if I did something I've been watching videos of Jim McGuire doing lately, and I decided to pull off the cardstock and do some Distress Oxide ink blending on the back. And then I was going to water stamp with the National Park stamp. And it might have worked if I had put it onto a block and wet it that way. But I end up, you'll see here in a second, you watch me ink blend here, but I end up spritzing the stamp on the stamping platform. And it didn't like that. It held too much water, especially at the part that says National. It just held too much water. And so when I stamped it down onto this blended background, it didn't give a crisp image. So, but that's okay. We work with it, right? We make it work. So there I sprayed it, which was probably my mistake. I should have just done it on a stamping block and let it like kind of drip off. It had too much liquid on it. So the idea is that you let it sit for a second and it pulls up the color, right? But you can see here when I pull up the color, you can see the word park, but National is just a big blur because it was too wet. So I'm like, oh, bummer, you know, it's just a 2x2 piece of cardstock. I'm just going to like set it aside and do another. But then I realized I could probably salvage it. So I do that. So I start working on another card. This is my Fossilized Amber, and I'm just going to do like an ombre effect. I'm going to go from white to darker yellow. And so you can see me working here. I'm trying to have a lighter hand here, and then I'll add an additional layer there to just kind of make it an ombre effect. I do work with this for a few minutes to kind of get it right. But this is actually going to be the card that I use the National Park stamp on. So I make sure to let that layer dry, and then I use the same color and I stamp some trees. So it's like a silhouette in the same color. And some of the trees I double stamp, and I have two different tree images. It's from that same National Park stamp in a Creative Bubble. But I'm really liking how that looks. So then I make sure to let that dry, and then I take Crackling Campfire and I stamp on top of the ombre effect background. And I love this because if you let the Distress Oxides dry, then you can layer them up like that, and it doesn't soak in or anything, and you can see this crisp, clear image of the National Park stamp, and I'm super loving how that looks. So then I decide I can salvage the messed up background by using the water to pull up some of the color, and I'm kind of just baby blurring out the part of the park that actually was readable. And then I'm going to stamp up this image, which is like a little badge. So I'm going to do the badge in green, and then I'll do the inside part. I think it says Wilderness Explorers in that bright turquoise color, and I will die cut it. And so it'll bring that pop of white into the pocket. And then I'll set it atop that blended ink background, and so it'll just look like a blended ink distressed background, you know, with the splatters, and you won't even be able to tell that I tried to do the water stamping on it. So it was not wasted work. And then I'm also going to create a journaling card here, because I did want to say a few things about the photos. So I just use a leftover leaf stamp, die cut, and then I just put a little tag at the bottom from that same stamp set, and I'll use the rest to do some of my journaling off screen. You'll see. And I think we're about to wrap it up. There you can see the badge that I cut out, and I'll set it on that background, and I'll make sure to separate those two very colorful cards in the pockets to give a good balance to the pocket page. But yeah, I'm going to fill them up, and there you have it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to put my affiliate links down below if you'd like to shop. And thanks for watching. I'd love it if you'd like and subscribe. Bye, y'all.